What is epistemology? What is epistemology? Epistemology is one of the primary branches of philosophy. It is the study of what knowledge is and how humans can acquire knowledge of reality. How do we know what we know? Epistemology is an important academic discipline with connection not only to philosophy, but also to things like cognitive science, historiography, and even quantum mechanics. Epistemology definition. The word epistemology comes from the Greek epistem, meaning knowledge, and logos, meaning reason or argument. Etymologically, therefore, epistemology is the study of knowledge. What is it? What it is? How it is acquired? And what its limitations are? Many highly influential philosophers dating back at least as far as ancient Greece have created theories of epistemology that influence philosophy today. Types of epistemology. There are several different types of epistemology, or rather, several different approaches to epistemological inquiry. Types of epistemology. There are several different types of epistemology, or rather, several different approaches to epistemological inquiry. While there are many specific names for this approach, epistemology can be broadly divided into two main schools of thought: empiricism and rationalism. Most philosophers who had studied epistemology have been ultimately supportive of one of these schools of thought over the other. While empiricists emphasize the ability of humans to learn about their reality using their sense, rationalists argue that knowledge comes from rational thought rather than from the external world. Plato, epistemology. Plato was one of the first philosophers to discuss what later became known as epistemology. For Plato, epistemology was a way to try and understand what the world really is and how people related to it. Plato's most famous texts discussing his theory of knowledge are his Phaedo and his Republic. Plato was skeptical about humans' ability to acquire knowledge of the real world through their sense, believing that the physical world was merely a representation of another realm that he called the realm of forms. For Plato, forms were the ultimate, unchanging, and perfect version of ideas and objects. For example, any triangle that a person may draw in the physical realm would be a mere representation of the form of the triangle. Plato's famous allegory of the cave goes into detail about how this dichotomy between real worlds and how it contributes to human knowledge. Aristotle, epistemology. For Aristotle, epistemology was not the most important branch of philosophy. He became better known for his theories of ethics and aesthetics. However, Aristotle did build on Plato's works with a particular emphasis on logic and rhetoric. He codified several forms of logic and explained how rhetoric could be used to reach clear conclusions. This method became foundational for a large number of philosophers who wished to explore epistemology through logically consistent methodology. Descartes' epistemology. René Descartes is still known for his major contribution to epistemology. and to rationalism in particular. Unlike Plato and Aristotle, Descartes was a radical skeptic who began by doubting every facet of reality to see if anything would logically remain irrefutable when he did so. He came to the conclusion that the only thing that he could not doubt about reality was his own existence, famously coining the phrase cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am, to explain his relationship to knowledge. Taking the position that his sensory experience could always be doubted, Descartes built up his epistemological framework from the perspective that he could not doubt his own existence, and that because of his belief in a benevolent God, he could trust his own ability to have relational thought. Kant epistemology. Immanuel Kant had one of the most unusual and challenging views of epistemology in the history of philosophy. In some ways, his view harkened back to Plato's early epistemology. Kant argued that when people perceive the world, they are only seeing the appearance of the things, rather than things as they really are. He argued that space, time, color, and the other phases of the existences that most people take for granted are actually projections that individuals overlay on reality to make it more comprehensible. In Kant's epistemology, reality is created by and exists within humans who perceive it, rather than being an external and unchanging truth. Epistemology examples. For most modern philosophers, epistemology has been discussed to the point where it has been narrowed down to three major criteria that must be satisfied to ensure that I believe can be considered knowledge. These criteria are belief. Someone cannot responsibly be said to know something if they don't know believe in it to be true. True. If someone believes something that is false, they don't know it as a fact. A fact. They are mistaken. Justification. Someone must have reasonable justification for what they believe in order for their belief to be true knowledge. An example of these three criteria in action may be: John knows that there are cones in his friend Frank's field. This can reasonably be considered something that John knows because he believes it to be true. Belief. There really are cows in the field. True. John saw cows in the field as he was driving up to Frank's farm. Justification. This is a classical epistemological example that use a combination of empirical and rational knowledge to come a justified and true belief. Issues in epistemology. Epistemology is a complex field of study, and many philosophers have questioned elements of even the most accepted parts of epistemology arguments. There are several major issues in epistemology that continue to be discussed by philosophers today.